Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Oathcast. This is part 2 of my special mini-series devoted to an article by Christ and PulpCulture.com, Hearts and Minds Can Learn from Gamergate. Or something like that. Anyway, quick TLDR from the last time. Pretty much it was a basic overview in which the author said Gamergate isn't actually about game journalist ethics. That's a smokescreen for the real thing, which is hating on women, and then a mention of quickly Arnita Sarkeesian and Brianna Wu and Leigh Alexander and stuff, and pretty much your basic garbage. None of it was fact-checked, and some of it was bold-faced lies, and other parts of it was just misinformation and or omittance. Anyways, not too impressed so far, but we're continuing on here on the subtitled area, starting at the road to Gamergate. So I'm going to go ahead and pop it over to that, and we'll continue where we left off. Alright, here we go. The road to Gamergate. Long before Gamergate, women spoke of simple existence within the video game industry as a risky, emotionally exhausting affair. Which I'm actually going to... Oh, Kotaku. The creepy side of E3. Isn't that the Kotaku article where they pretty much just took a picture of one person, and I'm not even going to go there. Anyways, but some. Because we know that not all women feel this way. You can't say all women have existed this way. So some women have stated that. Not all women. Illicit comments, harassment, and a general sense that women weren't real gamers. I have never said that. I actually have never thought. Actually thinking that women would get into gaming was like, oh yeah. Because let's face it, games are awesome. And if you can find a girl who also plays video games, that's like 10 times better. That just like immediately pushes them up in the awesome sphere. Anyways, but let's continue. Real gamers existed anywhere gamers congregated, from conventions, show floors to underground forums to mainstream sites, comment sections. Well, when I went to, previously, this year, to PAX Prime, there were a lot of women there. You know. But he's saying long before Gamergate, and I guess that was a month into Gamergate, but I'm pretty sure that, you know, that it wasn't like right before Gamergate had started. I mean, maybe 10 or so years ago it was like that. Of course, let's face it, 10 or so years ago, it was still treated as a, oh, only young men play it, even though that wasn't the truth. I mean, before that, it was only only little children play video games, and if you want to be an adult, you don't get to play video games. And then it was attributed to young teenage males, specifically, and whatever, but those are stereotypes. I mean, outside of the industry. It's not within the industry itself that those were thrown around. When I got together and hung out with my friends who were gamers, we didn't go, hey, isn't it interesting how all the gamers are white, young, heterosexual men? Never occurred to us. We just assumed that people play video games because they like video games, just like people watch movies because they like to watch movies, not because there's a specific sub-demographic that's automatically, you know, the chosen demographic, and they are the only ones to ever receive anything. Anyways, then games started changing, like 10 years ago. As women became more influential in games making process, and in the games making process, and began creating games themselves, games started to diversify. No, they were diversifying long before then. I mean, it doesn't mean, it's not like if you are a man, you can only make these types of games. If you are a woman, you can only make these types of games. If you're gay, you can only make these types of games. If you're, transsexual, you can only make these types of games. There's not some sort of directed. You can be straight and make games with gay characters. You can be straight and, make games with bisexual characters. You can be white and make games with starring another ethnicity being the main characters, or make elves or dwarves or something be the main character, which would be technically a different race. So that's a giant moot point. Gone Home, number 5 on last year's C-App 25, featured a woman as lead protagonist and involved no task besides exploring both a house and the internal struggle of another young woman. Yes, it's also a game that goes for $20 that you can beat in 40 seconds. Received a 10 out of 10 by Polygon, if I remember correctly. Let me check. I've got it right here. Polygon awarded, let's see, a senior reviewer. I'm at gamergatefacts.com for those of you who are wondering. Senior reviewer at Polygon awarded Gone Home one of 8 perfect reviews in the website's history. And obviously, you gotta say, wow, that game was either, the pinnacle of all things. It had to be ingenuitive, bug-free, good artwork, great storytelling, and fun gameplay. Right? Oh, wait, didn't we just hear that, no task besides exploring both a house? Wait, doesn't that make it Amnesia, sort of? Amnesia-esque? You just sort of click on things. It's what? So it's Dear Esther or something? I'm pretty sure Dear Esther came out for $10. But this is a game that you can beat in 40 seconds. I have watched the YouTube video. There's lots out there, but I watched one. You can beat in 40 seconds, and you're going to pay $20 for a game you can beat in 40 seconds. I'd assume that the normal game takes longer, but I'm not going to hold my breath that's anywhere beyond an hour unless you have issues trying to find things out. So let's say it's an hour of gameplay. You paid $20 for an hour of gameplay that you'll probably never spend more time in. I have about 290 hours in Team Fortress 2. That game I got for $10 back when it was actually, you were able to buy it. But $10, and I've spent, almost 300 hours in Team Fortress 2. I would say I got my money's worth out of it. However, Gone Home, you're spending $20 for a game you'll beat in an hour or two and probably never play again. And this game got a 10 out of 10, a perfect review score. However, reviewer failed to mention the fact that she was friends, and on the podcast, just a week before her review dropped, on a podcast with the devs, some of the devs, anyways, but she is friends with 2 of the game's developers, and she never disclosed it. That's a conflict of interest. You do not get to just report on your friends and never mention it. So that's a problem, because it looks like you're doing a quote-unquote objective review, but then you're not, because, oh, you're friends with them. As well, the reason why I can only say that it probably got a good review score was because it pushed a message they enjoy. As someone as already saying I'm a Christian, it would be like me giving someone a great review because they added, Jesus into their game. It could be, even if it was a point-and-click adventure game that you can find on, Congregate. Same type of game, point-and-click, normally it'd be free, and they're selling it for, let's say, $10. And it only takes you, 30 minutes to an hour to play through the entire game, and they want you to pay $10 for it, and the only reason why I give it a top review score is because it's got Jesus in it, and I'm friends with the devs. I would never do that. I'd never even consider it. I would never even give it... I honestly would probably never give a game a 10 out of 10, but how could Polygon, which has only given 8 perfect reviews in the website's history, and it's been around for, 2 years? So 2 years, they've had, let's say, 100 games reviewed. They've only had 8 out of those. So that's under 10% of the games they've reviewed. Yeah. So, under 10% of the games they've reviewed, they've given a perfect score. But why this game? It's quick and easy to play. It doesn't have amazing graphics. It doesn't even actually have watched some gameplay of it. It has no intuitive gameplay. It's nothing pinnacle. I would say that Amnesia the Dark Descent would actually be a better game, and even Dear Esther would probably be a good game because that game, Dear Esther actually has, you can go to different areas and hear different things. Ultimately, I believe it leads you to the same path, but at least you get like this nice sort of branching out area where you can go around and explore and stuff, and ultimately leads you back to the main storyline and finishes it. But this game, you pretty much follow a linear storyline. You have to go from point A to point B, point C, point D, point E, point F to eventually be able to make it, or you beat it in 40 seconds if you know exactly what to do. So not pinnacle of anything amazing. Kelly Santiago's Flower and then Journey helped to redefine the standard console game by presenting the player with a game that involved no violence or real conflict, but instead focused on quiet inward play. And that's fine. If people want to make games like that, they can. And some people will enjoy them, and some people will absolutely love them. But do not artificially help them. Gone Home did not deserve a perfect review. No matter what anyone thinks, it did not deserve a perfect review. Maybe a high review, but not a perfect review. Because it was I would say it's far from the perfect game, because when I see 10 out of 10 or perfect score, it should be the game everyone should aspire to, the type of game and advancements that every other game should attempt to aspire to. It should be the role models of video games. And that game, pretty much other than having a gay character in it, it doesn't have much else. That's it. So, not too impressed at all by it. Zoe Quinn created Depression Quest, which helped players to understand what it was like to live a life plagued with clinical depression. Except you don't really understand, because you're not understanding what the character's going through. I believe it's done in second person. So it describes what's going on, but you don't actually know what the actual character's going through. It's not like, I feel this way, because it's you feel this way. And so I would say that's actually a bad way of storytelling, because if you want people to really empathize with a character, especially if they're playing as that character, you need to have them be able to understand what that character is going through by experiencing not only the same events, but also the same mindset. Otherwise, people can't do it. Because if you simply tell someone, you're sad, and because nothing, you don't give a reason, you don't tell people the process behind it or anything, then people aren't going to understand, and it disconnects your audience from this message you're trying to give, which just muddles the entire thing up. These games don't replace anything. That's correct. I don't expect them to ever replace anything if they're simply, treated like every other game. They're not promoted specially, they're not artificially advanced, they're not, there's no helping them get up higher. If they are simply put on in the same scoring area of every single other games, including AAA, including indie, or doing those like half bastardized, not really bastardized, those half and half games where it's like they're a big dev studio, sort of like Obsidian making Pillars of Eternity. It's sort of a half and half area. If they do that, then I don't expect them to ever replace anything. However, if they're, specifically giving those games 10 out of 10s, and let's say, a brilliant game comes along, just mind-boggling good, and they go, it's a 7.0 because it told things from the perspective of white male or something like that, then screw that. Because at that point, you're not even being honest. You're just being biased, and yes, you're going to start replacing things. They didn't push other big box AAA experiences off the shelves. Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto didn't go away, yeah, they wouldn't. They will always have a place. I mean, I don't play Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto. I do play Battlefield. Um, but they'll never go away. The problem is it fair and is it honest? So a large group of gamers felt threatened by a combination of thoughtful criticism and creation. No, it wasn't thoughtful criticism and creation. It was artificial advancement and biased reviews. That's the problem. So as it turns out, Gamergate didn't start with a scandal so much as it was galvanized by a scandal which eventually morphed into a broader Gamergate phenomenon, providing concrete evidence of a video game industry owned and operated by a vocal and strategic majority. Actually, they're a minority because I doubt most of the world would identify themselves as such. Most people actually don't even identify themselves as feminists, which is way easier to get out. So you're already losing half the battle, and it's not by vocal and strategic majority. They're actually, I would say, in the gaming press, they're a majority. And that's not okay, because these aren't normal people, these are ideologues. So these are people trying to push a message. So it'd be like if CNN tomorrow got taken over by Christian ideologues and decided, I'm going to use a lot of Christian stuff just because it's way easier, and because I'm a Christian I don't feel bad about making these. And so taken over by Christian ideologues. And the only news they put out there is, you know, America has to repent. If you don't, you're going to be damned. The entire world's going to be destroyed. You know, September 15th or something. Well, why is that PAX? Saw a woman saying that September 25th was when the rapture was going to happen. Asked my cousin that I was there with what she was going to do on the 26th. Then I guess she sort of probably felt kind of silly at that point. But what they're like, oh, the rapture is going to happen on the 15th of September and stuff like that. And that's all they put out there was this Christian ideological babble. And it might not even been reasonable Christian ideological babble or like sermons. Let's just say really screwy ideological stuff, like the stuff that the paranoid conspiracy, you know, Illuminati, New World Order is coming to take over, and the mark of the beast is going to be implanted in everyone through the use of vaccines and stuff. So really crazy stuff. And that's what they were pushing. But they were still under the guise of CNN. I think people would have a problem with that. And Gamergate didn't start out with a scandal. It started out by a scandal, which then changed into an overall sort of cultural consumer revolt. It pretty much became a consumer revolt. Gamergate is the consumer revolt, where ultimately it's people, pretty much gamers being tired of being told lies by the gaming press, which is colluding to push certain messages and to silence other messages, which is unethical, incorrect, and wrong. So, no, it didn't start with a scandal. That's correct. Instead, it was actually the scandal eventually brought up a lot of people to a place where they started that consumer revolt. Sort of like World War II, World War I wasn't started by the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, so you can't really say that, you know, World War I started over Franz Ferdinand being assassinated, but it definitely it was the starting point of the certain events that led to World War I happening. Anyways, moving on. Social justice warriors. Never mind the fact that there's no real evidence for this claim. Yeah, we do. Nor is there any smoking gun that proves a game got more coverage than it deserved because of some secret agenda to overthrow male gaming population. No, not because it had a secret agenda to overthrow the male gamer population. Instead, it's an agenda to push certain ideologues that they agree with while attacking others. Like, why is it that GTA 5 got a lower score because it supposedly exploited, women, even though that game was just, if someone wants to argue about it, I might as well. I honestly, in my opinion, that game's just, all of those games are just terrible because it's all about the criminal underground. So there's not really any, like, oh, it's specifically exploiting this one group. I would say it's exploiting every group. If you're going to be on, talk about it, at least be honest and accept the fact that it's not just a bad game because certain people are being used. It's just a terrible game because it uses everyone and it degrades everyone. Don't just complain about one subset that you actually care about. That'd be like complaining that, well, this, military group is sweeping through and shooting all of these villagers and stuff in, let's say, Africa, killing all of the villagers and burning all the houses and raping the women and stuff and killing everything. That PETA comes out and says, "Oh my goodness, they're killing animals. They're so horrible." Yeah, what about everyone else? If you're going to push your own ideology, then go to your own blog. Do not, as I've said before, do not promote yourself as an objective or mainstream group if you are going to push a specific ideology. As soon as you put yourself as a mainstream group, you have to bow to certain rules which would come into being objective, being honest, being stuff. You can still be, big and specifically cater to one ideology. But that doesn't mean you gotta call yourself a mainstream site or say you're for everyone to read or things like that. So, but we do have smoking guns. We have actually quite a few smoking guns. I've got them in front of me. So saying there is no smoking gun is absolutely an outright lie. Absolute outright lie. I'm calling these people out. Absolute outright lie. Amend it. You've been caught. Amend it. Retract it. I don't care. Change it. Otherwise, you're promoting lies. And that's not something you want to do. Especially if you call yourself a Christian. Don't get promote lies and call yourself a Christian. Something in the Bible that says, you're not supposed to lie. Somewhere in there. I think it's one of those 10 commandments. The narrative conveyed by Gamergate is marked by fear and includes an implicit assumption that video game developers and journalists must refrain from politics. No, it's not that. It's just that we're tired of certain ideologies being pushed and others being silenced. As I've said it before and I'll say it again, the problem is that journalists, not game devs, because game devs can push whatever they want. They can create whatever they want. And the consumer, us, the consumers, get to purchase whatever we want. And if they go bankrupt because they made a terrible game about something stupid, then that's their problem, not ours. Because we don't have to buy it. But when you've got game journalists saying, buy this game because it agrees with an agenda I believe in, they have reached a dishonest point. And if they're promoting a game that has an ideology they agree with and they're friends with the dev, that just compounds the unethical stuff they're doing. It's sort of... I'm going to put this in Christian terms. As soon as you sin once, you're forever separated from God. As soon as you sin, you are separated from God. There is no way to undo that except to have an intercessor, which is Christ. That's why he exists. So, as soon as someone acts unethically, just once, they're unethical. They're absolutely unethical. And unless they're willing to come clean, repent, and ask for forgiveness and stuff, issue an apology and all of that, then honestly, I will only assume that they're unethical. If people don't come out and repent, give an apology and show that they've actually made a change, then I will forever think you are the same way you were back then. Because you make no attempt to say anything else. In general, subjective perspective in their work, worldview, assumptions, and general subjective perspective. We don't care about developers. Journalists are the people we have problems with, and that's when they push certain ideologies. In other words, Gamergate is about enforcing homogeneity in the video game space. Gamergate is about silencing alternative perspective. No, we're about keeping people from specifically promoting certain works based upon either monetary gain or ideological belief, or even non-monetary gain and just possessional gain. Or statutory gain. If you get status, money, status, money, or stuff, or it agrees with your ideology and you push it for one of those reasons, then you are being unethical, and that's our problem. And that right there is I would say it's a misrepresentation of actually what Gamergate is about. That's a misrepresentation right there. It's all too easy to see the passionate, emotional revelation of alternative perspective as attacks on our own worldview rather than what they really are. Articulations of the human experience. Okay, congratulations. But there's a difference between, thoughtful and useful perspectives, but passionate emotional revelations of alternative perspectives. So what? They're breaking down, crying, and saying, "Oh, don't you understand? It's just this way. I'm oppressed." Because I'm not going to buy that. It'd be like, suck it up, baby. Ugh. Yeah, not... What? That doesn't make much sense at all. The more we are a comfortable part of the norm, the more likely we are to become convinced that all other perspectives are an attack on the norm. No. Because that assumes that people will react in a certain way. Some people react violently or strangely when someone disrupts them. Other people quickly adapt to it. I would say in general, people will question why someone is attacking the norm. They'll say, why is this person doing this? What is the purpose of this? And they'll dig into it. Because let's face it, when a norm is established, it's usually because it's not had any reason to attack it. If something's trying to be established and it's constantly attacked, it's unlikely to become the norm until the attacks subside. So eventually, apparently, people accepted this as the norm, meaning that there was no reason in, ethical, moral, reasonable, logical reason for them to not accept it as a norm. And when people attack the norm, it's sort of like when you're working in science and you come up, you find all of this stuff, you create a good theory and someone attacks your theory. Now, honestly, theories aren't fact, so you should obviously, just like norms, you should be willing to accept that there's probably going to be someone else out there thinking something different. But honestly, the first reaction is going to be questioning why someone's attacking it. What is wrong with my theory or something which would cause someone to attack it? What are they saying and what purpose does it have? And the purpose is not of mainly the attacks coming from the ideological feminists and the cultural Marxists isn't to promote a better gaming environment. It's to push a certain specific belief, which is actually, I would say, a victimization push. of certain groups and an attack on what they see as the quote unquote majority oppressors. So they're not trying to build a better gaming world. They're specifically just trying to tear down pieces of the existing gaming world out of a call for, equality. What we're seeing in the video game space right now is a heightened and engineered retaliation to a norm that is changing. Well, I honestly don't see how the norm is changing because, let's face it, the norm will change as the market changes, because it's still a market. Yes, video games may be an art, but it's still based upon a market because people still buy it. Their things. So you're selling these things, and you're making, ultimately, you'll get two people. People who make it as an art form, and people who do it as a business. So people who make games because they're viewing it as an art form will make games that conform to their own beliefs and ideals, which will sell for some people and won't sell for others. People who make video games as a business will end up being like Activision and EA and stuff, and they'll just make whatever sells the best. Now, the big businesses, which are all about making money, they will make video games based upon what the people want. So as the market changes, they will react to that. But why attempt to break into a new market, which they may or may not gain money off of, if it's not been proven it works already? Are these businesses willing to risk millions of dollars on building a game which may or may not be well received? If they know, because with video games and movies and all of that, there's never an assured outcome. It's always, hit or miss. You either sell a lot of copies or you don't sell a lot of copies. You either lose money on it or you make money on it. And then after that, it's just, changes, how much you've earned or you've lost. But that all determines whether or not they try doing it. They may make small incursions into that foray, trying to see, well, will it work, things like that, do case studies and stuff like that. But they're honestly not going to jump into an unproven market, while indie devs will. Now, the thing is that apparently video games have been doing pretty well because it's $100 billion this year, dollar industry that's doing quite well. It's become the biggest medium. So apparently there doesn't seem to be, too many problems with the norm. And the problem that a lot of people are seeing is not the fact that it's moving organically somewhere else, but it's being artificially pushed in certain directions. And that's what we have a problem with, is that people are promoting some ideologies and attacking others specifically to cause the market to shift in certain ways, which is not okay. So here we are with a misguided movement that serves as a way for throngs of threatened gamers to save face. Apparently, women are threatened gamers. Yeah. To convey outrage rather than fear and hurt. My fear. Hello, my name is Oath, and I've been doing this for 2 years. Anyways, my fear is not that that the market's moving, but that the market is being forced to change, and that even though I'm not a video game designer, if that was happening in book writing, and they were specific, let's say they were saying we don't want books that involve violence. We'll just say that. My book has violence in it. My book has quite a bit of graphic violence. So if I knew that I'm trying to make something I love, or that people want, and for some reason, my book's going to get bad reviews or bad press because it doesn't conform to the ideologies of certain groups, I'm going to get, that's really not okay at all. And I think it's absolutely fine for people to feel that way, to have that fear that you're going to have a system like that. Sure, they may not be, censoring you in the strict definition. They're not blacklisting you, saying do not look at these, companies because they've made games that we feel are sexist or misogynist or don't conform to our ideology. But, you know, but video games, especially the ones, it's do or die for them, and that press is necessary for them to survive. And if they can't get money, they have to fold. So the thing is that you're pushing, you're kind of forcing them. You're not directly censoring them, but you're doing it through backroom deals, which is worse. Because at least when you say we're censoring this community, we want this gone, at least at that point you're being honest about what you're doing, and people can hate you for it. But like this is much worse. Because this implicates not only you, but this is just horrible. It's absolutely not okay in any sense of the word. The space that used to make them feel valued and alive, that used to distract them from real-life struggles, now seems to be infiltrated by those very things. No, I can honestly say that cultural Marxism is very much not a reality. It's never worked. Cultural Marxism and feminism have never apparently happened anywhere, and I would say they're very much fantasies. The problem is that these are fantasies that they're attempting to force on us, which I honestly do not want to be involved with that kind of fantasy. They yell, scream, and threaten so that they don't cry. I do not feel like crying. I honestly don't. But great job at an ad hominem, and trying to project onto us, saying that I'm sorry, that's a very terrible personal attack. Oh, they'll cry if they don't yell and scream. Oh, I have yet to yell. No, okay, I've yet to yell. I've yet to yell. I've yet to scream. I haven't threatened anyone. I think the worst I've done is made snarky remarks, done sarcastic remarks, done passive-aggressive responses, and perhaps got a little bit heated, but I've never actually been yelling, screaming, or threatening. And I've yet to feel like crying over all of this. Well, let's continue on. The arguments coming from Gamergate side tend to be to take a brute force approach with a string of arguments that are conveyed as calm and reasonable. Brute force approach. So what, we're battering down doors or something? Ours are based on fact and truth, so I'm sorry. And I've been calm and reasonable to anyone who's willing to be calm and reasonable. I actually was very calm and reasonable when someone started off by saying, fuck you. And then I thanked them for having a civil conversation with me, and they said, yes, of course, fuck you. So, even when they weren't being civil, I was. So, I think that a lot of things are conveyed as calm and reasonable. Some people get uppity, but, it's not my place to control that. I'm not in charge of them. I'm not their mom. They're adults. They can handle it. And the other side is mainly made up of adults, so they can handle it too. Many within the movement pride themselves on their possession of logic. I am logical, which is to say they claim to possess objective truths. Yes, we do. They would like everyone to accept. Well, if they're objective truths, then they're the ultimately the honest truth. And if they're the honest truth, then there's no reason for anyone to not hold them. Because, let's face it, there's facts and truth, I would say, are synonymous. Mainly because the truth is ultimately what the facts honestly say. It's what reality is. It's not something you can change or screw around with or magically make different. Anything beyond what the truth is a lie. Anything that omits part of the truth, anything that kind of skirts around the truth. Anything that is not absolutely about the truth is a lie. So, yes, if we have objective truths, then everyone should accept them. Otherwise, people are accepting lies. The content of these truths remains unclear except in what they are not. They're not lies, so I think it's pretty clear. You can read all of the facts, and that's not too hard because you read the facts, you look at it objectively, and you go, oh, so that's what the truth is, and then that's it. Then you don't believe in lies, you believe in truth. They deny, the content of these truths remains, no, got that. They deny that women need a larger voice. We didn't say that. We've never said that. We've never said that women do not need a larger voice. We've said that women need to choose to go into the group and that people shouldn't spread fear-mongering and they shouldn't push certain ideologies. That sexual objectification is a problem in games. No, we do not deny that there's sexual objectification in games. However, we do argue how much there is in terms of prevalence and in terms of which gender is being done, because sometimes men are the sex objects in video games. But people would have you think that they're never that way. And we disagree with certain pieces within that, but no one that I've talked to will say, no, women have never been sexually objectified in games. It's never been there. That's never happened. That meaningless violence in games is a problem. What is meaningless violence? Because if we're talking about in the context of like real world events, like just running around shooting people, okay, that makes sense, because in real world, you wouldn't do that. You have no purpose to it. But if the purpose of the game is to run around and shoot people, then honestly, then you have a reason. It's not meaningless violence. There is a reason for it, and therefore it is meaningful violence. And I wouldn't say violence in video games is a bad thing. Just like, violence in video games has never been proven to cause people to be violent. Same way that sexual objectification of men or women in games have never been shown or proven to cause sexism. And that video game journalism ought to concern itself with anything beyond what makes a game fun. If they can prove something, then sure. But the thing is that we as consumers, because honestly, let's face it, the journalists write things for the consumers. They don't write for themselves. If they want to write for themselves or their own team, they can make blog posts. But they write those things so that the gaming world at large knows. And the gaming world at large doesn't give a rip about how Susie Q feels that, mega ultra awesome game makes her feel like there's meaningless violence or makes her feel like it's objectifying women or something. People really don't care about what other people feel in the terms of what makes me feel oppressed. That's what editorials are for. That's what opinion pieces are for. But as soon as you start saying it, like it applies to everyone, this objectifies women. This is sexism. This makes women feel bad. This makes men violent. As soon as you start doing that, you're being dishonest. And you're pushing something, and that's not okay. And that's the problem. Journalism should not concern itself with opinion pieces. They should not be all about the opinion, because people don't, generally the most read articles are not the opinion pieces, but the articles that actually have some meaning, like a shred of direct, undeniable truth in them. People read reviews not because they want an opinion, but because they want to learn about the game. I don't think I've ever read a review in which I went there because I just wanted to get the author's opinion of the game. I mean, some people do, because some people trust authors. That's why people might go Total Biscuit over PC gamer. But, you know, other than that, it's kind of up to, well, how do they do things? And if the person's upfront, honest, and fair, and objective, then I think if all things are like that, then reviews are good. And not all reviews will cover the same thing, which is why people might go to multiple reviews. But anyways, yeah, opinions should be the lesser point of any part of journalism. Because they're opinions. They're not held by everyone. So not everyone cares about them. Or some people make videos making fun of them, like I did. Moving on. Gamergate supporters often claim that reports of threats are either blown out of proportion or originate from some other group or cause, albeit one with very similar concerns. No. Let me put it this way. They have been blown out of proportion. They have not all been able, actually, I think very few of them, there's any way to link them to Gamergate. And yes, there are a few people who have used the Gamergate hashtag to do so. But honestly, being able to point fingers and say, this was absolutely a Gamergate supporter, and this is our proof, has been very shoddy. Because anyone can take on the name Gamergate. You know, maybe if the person had been around for the 2 months and been talking about it, or even for a few weeks, and you can prove definitively that they have constantly, or at least mainly, been engaged in the hashtag in a non-trolling fashion, which means giving reasonable words or things like that. I'm not saying, hey, we should all threaten, you know, Anita Quinn. Anita Sarkeesian. Oh boy, that would be a bad mix, Anita Quinn. Ooh. But, or Zoe Quinn or something, if they're going around saying, oh, we need to get rid of these people, we should send them rape threats or death threats, those have been decried. So, and with, albeit very similar concerns, what, ethics in game journalism? I've yet to see them. I mean, usually they're saying we want to kill these people. They don't represent us, they say from one side of the mouth. But from the other, they continue to condemn social justice warriors, who merely seek to add their voice to an industry in desperate need of new perspectives. What? They don't represent us. People making threats, harassing, and doxing do not represent us. Okay? That's absolutely a great thing to say. And it's not speaking from one side of the mouth. Because from the other, they continue to condemn. Condemning does not mean sending death threats, sending things. Because, honestly, if they wanted to say this the way they should have said it, to actually make it even be slightly reasonable, would be, they don't represent us, they say from one side of the mouth. But from the other, they create an atmosphere in which these people feel like they can say that. That would be it. That would be the old adage, speaking with a forked tongue. You say one thing, but you do another type deal. But this one, condemning, yes, we are criticizing the social justice warriors. Aren't we supposed to be, isn't this, then up here he said give and take, where is it? Back and forth criticism. So why would it be bad to condemn or critique these social justice warriors? Why would that be a bad thing? I can't think of a reason why it would be a bad thing. That would be good. Who merely seek to add their voice. No, they merely seek to control the industry, to control the voice, to pretty much take the industry and mold it to their will. You know, this is turning into Sauron here, guys. That's what they're doing. They want to mold it, to shape it. This specific fight taking place on a small battlefield of video games industry should look familiar, because we've seen it many times before. No, we really haven't. We haven't seen a fight this strong for journalistic ethics. We've never seen this before. It's what happens when a self-centered, man-centered religiosity overwhelms a love for one's neighbor. What the freaking heck? What? That's just so stupid. Self-centered. or I believe that journalism should be fair, honest, and objective. You're self-centered. What? Man-centered. What does men? Why are you being sexist? What do men have to do with this? Honestly, are you going to say that all men are evil or something? Because I would say all humans are evil. That's like the first thing that you're taught in church, is that no one is righteous. Everyone's a sinner. Religiosity, the religion of we want ethical game journalism, overwhelms a love for one's neighbor. The Bible doesn't say have love for one's neighbor. It says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and love thy neighbor as thyself. And that's ultimately saying that you need to treat people with the respect you want. However, there's a difference between, treating people a certain way, like humans, and also treating them fairly and justly, because, you treat everyone like humans and treat them fairly and justly. But if a person is a liar, is a scoundrel, is someone who uses others, is a scammer or fraud person, you do have to treat them like they are that way, because that's the only fair and honest way to treat them. And you would expect that if you were lying, if you were pushing false narratives, if you were attacking other people based upon their beliefs, or, working in a corrupt regime and helping perpetuate corruption and lies and an ideology upon others while pretending that it doesn't exist, then you would expect probably people to give you flack. For Gamergate, the de facto religion... Oh, so now we're a religious group. See, this is where I'm just going to berate these guys. You have no right to place that on anyone. You have no freaking right to invoke God, to invoke the Bible, to invoke the church upon this. Because you have misrepresented the facts. You have lied. You have omitted facts to suit the narrative that you want to push. You have taken the very heart of Scripture, the very base of what it ultimately is about, which is about truth. And you have taken that, you've blown your nose in it, and you've thrown it to the side, all to fit a narrative you want. So everything beyond this point, every time that you invoke some sort of biblical theme, I am going to call you out on it. And if this guy is listening to this, if Mr. Richard Clark, I would recommend that you seek God in these matters and that you repent. Because lies, slander, all that, you're a hypocrite. You are a freaking giant hypocrite. And my sympathy for you is nil. My empathy for you is nil. If you want to apologize, repent, and change this, then I will accept it, and I will let this all go. I forgive you. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to call you out on every piece that you write on this. Anyways. Religion is a devotion to a hobby that simply hasn't earned our devotion. The only thing that technically one could say has earned devotion is God, because he is a transcendent being. The reason why people would worship God is not because he's just a metaphysical force, but because he is not just a metaphysical force, he is a metaphysical force that is omnipotent, omnipresent, and whatever all-knowing is. He's all-knowing, he's all-powerful, and he exists everywhere, technically. So the reason why you worship him is because he is the pinnacle of all things. He is the most powerful thing in the absolute universe. And you worship him because of that. If there was someone above him, let's say, you've got God, and then you've got Ultra Mega God, then you would worship Ultra Mega God. Not God, Ultra Mega God. Why? Because why worship something that's not quite as powerful as the ultimate thing? So this thing is a total misrepresentation and making it seem like some things have earned devotion. Nothing has earned devotion other than God, because he is all powerful. If you become the ultimate force in all of the universe, and even beyond the universe, if you just become more powerful than all things, including God, then I would worship you. Because at that point, you would be the ultimate force in all things. And why would I worship something which isn't as powerful as the ultimate power? And so that's just a terrible misrepresentation, because that makes it, that indicates that there might be things that have earned our devotion, which nothing has earned our devotion. Technically God doesn't even earn our devotion, because he didn't have to do anything for us, for us to end up being devoted. He just exists, and we are devoted to him because he exists. Like the false idols of the Old Testament, we are not burning, we are not taking our children, and we are not putting them on a statue of Moloch and having them burn alive so that we can have a fertile planting season. We're not slaughtering pigs or something like that. So no, not of the Old Testament. Video games require protection on the part of the followers, or else they may be destroyed. You know what? Video games do require protection. They require protection by people that would use them to be self-serving, to push ideologies, to force political thoughts upon people. Just like books, just like anything else. I'm reminded of George Orwell's 1984, where in that, you've got the Ministry of Truth. And the Ministry of Truth is all about specifically cherry-picking things or revising things to make it look like the centralized government is always correct. So our problem is we want to protect it from something like that happening, where there is one thought, one truth, one thing, because that's where things are going. I mean, they're already pushing for it. You criticize things you don't agree with, and you praise and promote the things you do agree with. And by doing that, you control how the market sees it, and then things. And they don't allow counter-criticism. Anita Sarkeesian has never accepted counter-criticism. She's never debated anyone. She's never sat down and addressed any of the concerns people brought up. She's simply mocked, made fun of, and laughed at anyone who disagrees with her. On their own, these games are beautiful, marvelous things. All games are beautiful, marvelous things. Except when they're not. If they're terrible games, they're terrible games. You can't... If someone paints a picture and it looks like garbage, it's garbage. It doesn't change the fact that it's garbage. Maybe someone will see a redeeming quality in it. But if objectively it looks like garbage, then it's probably garbage. But when they are crafted into an idol, none of them have been crafted into an idol, for heaven's sakes. This person has made his own idol. His own idol is his ideology. They offer destruction and hate. What? Let me... I'm just going to take care of this really quick. Because I'm just totally... This guy's just nuts. I'm sorry. This shouldn't even be called Christ in pop culture. This should be called cult and pulp culture. Look, dude. And anyone else who's listening who actually cares. They are not crafted into idols, because they are not created for the sole purpose of being an idol. Unless you can prove to me that these game companies have created these games particularly to fulfill that role, to become idols, then they cannot be crafted. Now, they can be used as idols. They can't be crafted, but they can be used as idols, and maybe that's what you meant. They can be used as idols, but that is a personal thing. That's one person. What you are suggesting is that I, a fellow believer in Christ, because I've engaged in Gamergate, that is because video games are an idol to me. Now, you do not know me. You do not know my walk with Christ. You do not know my history. You do not know anything about me. So I ask this: who are you to speak for me? Who are you to dismiss me? Who are you to demand that I am a way that you say I am? Who are you? You're not God. You're not all-knowing. Not even an angel, for heaven's sakes. You're a man. A man who feels there's no problem to lie, to slander, to misrepresent the truth, to go ahead and omit facts to suit your purpose. I so far haven't seen any talk about harassment on the Gamergate side coming to Gamergate, nor the the creation of Not Your Shield, which exists because there were quote-unquote minorities, females, gays, blacks, Latinos, all of those people who were like, yeah, we're not here for these people, these ideological feminists, these cultural Marxists to invoke as their protection. Well, you just hate the gays, and that's why you don't want your games to change, because you just hate the gays, yo. You just hate them. And they were like, no, we're here. You can't ignore us. We are not your shield. And that's where the hashtag came from. But no mention of that. Just, it's all about white men getting angry. Yeah, we've got women. We've got gays. The three... no, I'll just go with two top people in Gamergate. Milo Yiannopoulos and Christina Hoffman Summers. Milo is gay. He's white, but he's gay, so he's a minority. He's not a straight white male. And Christina is a female, and she supports video games. Oh my word. Well, there goes your angry white man thing. She supports Gamergate. And you can support Gamergate and not be okay with harassment. I mean, there's the Gamergate harassment patrol. That exists for a reason, because we don't want people to threaten or to dox or to do things like that. We've got a problem with that. But when you omit the fact that there's people on the other side doing the exact same thing, and also conveniently omit calling the constant slander, lies thrown at Gamergate, and also the fact that you are helping to perpetuate that ideology, you, my friend, are a liar. And honestly, I can honestly say this, that as soon as you spoke your first lie, and amid your first truth, and misrepresented your first fact, you lost all credibility. And I can honestly say that if anyone was to ever ask me if they should read articles on Christ and pulp culture, I would tell them never go to that place, because the people there, well, the editorial staff apparently has no issue with not fact-checking, lying, or any of those. Anyways, this video is over an hour now, so I'm going to save the last bit for me to do tomorrow, which is going to be fun. Yeah, I'm just this stuff. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, because I'm just really pretty ticked off of all of this. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Rate this video, even if you hate it. Favorite it if you enjoy it. Feel free to subscribe to me so you can get future updates. And don't forget to share it, because people need to know that apparently this website doesn't give a rip about the truth. Anyways, until next time, guys, I just want to let you all know, stay safe, be careful, be civil, and as always, stay strong and game on. I, of course, am Oath Alliance, and this is the Oathcast. You all have a great day.